is going to be the Season 14 tank hero for Overwatch though? Let's have a look. Season 14 is still a few months away, but we won't have to wait that long to find out who is going to be that next tank hero for Overwatch though. As I mentioned in the preview video I did for Season 13, which I'll link below, we'll most likely get the chance to test that hero somewhere in Season 13, most likely near the end. My guess is around the first week of December. So who is that going to be? Contrary to Venture and Juno, this new hero was not shown off at BlizzCon last year. Well, they kinda were. In one of the slides that they showed off for Venture, there was the hero selection screen, and in the tank category you could see a new character profile for a tank. This one. Now these icons are something they do often while they're developing a new hero. It is an internal placeholder that uses a caricature of the hero. For instance, this is the one that they made for Venture. Now back in the day, when that happened, some sources claimed that it was accidental. But no, it wasn't. That was Blizzard being cheeky. That being said, Venture's icon looked pretty clear. You could definitely see Venture in that caricature. With this new tank hero, it's slightly more difficult. I'm not even sure if you're not holding it upside down, to be honest. If you flip it around, it actually kind of makes more sense. That green mohawk becomes a green goatee. But yeah, I'll come back to that later. Let's just turn it the normal way up. I personally have a few theories on who this might be. There are a few options that we've not heard about before, and yeah, even someone that has been part of the lore since the start. But first, let me reiterate a theory I had that I talked about in the video where I did a map tour on Throne of Anubis. That map also reused those Omnic husks that we used to see on the Temple of Anubis. There were two types of husks. The slender ones later turned out to be the base model for Echo. So in a way, that was a hint that Echo was coming. The other ones are a little more round. But what if these also hinted to a future hero? Could be. Now, the reason why I figured it might be the Season 14 tank is the face, or rather the lack of a face. See, those husks do not have a head. There seems to be something that resembles a face in the middle of that model. And that little portrait that we got to see in that slide also looks like they have a head that isn't necessarily on top of their body. But, as I also stated in that video, it is a bit of a stretch. But look, while we are stretching, some people also see a turtle in that portrait. And I can understand why. That whole thing behind their head could be the shell. Look at the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Or Bowser, for instance. This could be the Overwatch version of Bowser. What if this is the tank version of Lucio? A sound-based tank that is represented with a turtle instead of a frog. And instead of a DJ, he is the drummer in a punk band. That would definitely explain the green mohawk. And that slight look like he's an animal from the Muppets. How about it being a Los Muertes member? Because that neon green. So in other words, we have an evil, turtle-looking drummer that is affiliated with Los Muertes. Now seriously, now that I'm talking about this, I'm quite excited about this option. A drumming tank that uses drums as weapons. Come on! But you know what? We're going to jump to the other end of the world. Australia. Blizzard loves their junkers. For good reasons. They are a very interesting group within the Overwatch lore. And they are a thankful source of new heroes. That Mad Max vibe allows them to bring a different tone to the rather futuristic palette that is Overwatch. That is exactly why we already have two junker tanks. And why we might, maybe, get a third one. One of the theories that has been floating around for a few months now is that this is Greta Knuckles. Greta Knuckles is one of those cage fighters that you see in No Junk City that fight in the arena, the first point that you need to capture. She looks like she could be Roadhog's sister. And the thing that makes people think that this tank hero might be Greta is the green mohawk. And besides the rather special hairdo, there's also the metal jaw. Greta seems to have a metal jaw, a yellow one, at least in the art in New Junk City. Now in that little portrait that we saw at BlizzCon, you can see hints of that jaw. It is black though. There are a few things that make me think it's not going to be Greta. For one, as I said before, we already have two junker tanks. I mean, I love them, but another one? I don't know. Second, her name is Knuckles. Knuckles. Remember this guy? He has knuckles too. I don't think we need two tanks that punch you into the wall. But yet, if you introduce a new tank hero that is called Knuckles, you can't give him any abilities that don't use the knuckles. So, I don't think it's happening. And third, apart from the green mohawk and maybe the little piece of a jaw, there isn't much to build on. There isn't really a match. For instance, Greta has these goggles on top of her head. They're missing in that portrait. And then there's the hunch. You know, that thing behind the head. Sure, in a caricature, you might be inclined to kind of put the head a little more forward as if they're leaping towards you or they're yelling, but I'm just not convinced. No. Personally, I think it's going to be a hero that we've heard about. Someone that is known in the lore, that has been around since the first trailer ever. And it is another former Overwatch member. We haven't had a new Overwatch member since Soja. And this game is still called Overwatch, isn't it? I personally think it's going to be Soundquake. I know someone that is going to be extremely happy that I'm saying this. But why? Well, first off, I don't think it's the Soundquake as we've seen him in that first ever trailer, or as he's depicted in a lot of the early concepts. I think they adjusted him, but I'll come back to that in a second. Let me explain who Soundquake is. He used to be an Overwatch member, till the Petros Act. We know about him because Timmy, that little kid with the cast in the original trailer that they showed at BlizzCon in 2014? Yeah, I think it was 14. He mentioned Soundquake. And in the recall animation, you see all these portraits flashing by of former Overwatch members. Soundquake is in there. Now, in the original concept art, Soundquake was a Numbani-themed hero that, according to Timmy, had chest missiles, which I think Farah kind of stole. Well, it's shoulder missiles, but still. And he had a big rhino horn on top of his head. It was never really clear if he was a human in armor or a huge-ass Omnic. I still think it's the second option. Now, over the years, they did a lot of concepts that you can find in the art books that they published. And you can see that those concept arts clearly inspired other heroes, like Reinhardt, for instance. And then there's Orisa, who is a Numbani Omnic. Her backstory might have been an altered version of his story. And then there's the Null Sector Behemoth, or Charger, as they ended up calling him. That enemy unit in the PvE missions is almost a copy of what we figured Soundquake would look like, including the Horde, which might be part of his backstory. The Null Sector actually copied one of the strongest Overwatch heroes to make their own tropes. He must have been a badass, come on. So much so even that they made him a hero in one of the in-game games. See, on the PC and Diva's room on Busan, you can see a game, and on the menu screen there is a hero that a lot of people are convinced is Soundquake. And I can understand why. First they thought it was Beast, but nah, he has those same looks, and the weird thing is that he has a bit of a green streak coming out of his head, as if it is that mohawk that we saw in that picture. So, on one end, they picked apart the whole concept of Soundquake, used it in all types of different heroes, the backstory, the look, the abilities. On the other hand, there are ways to work around that in the lore. He could have been imprisoned by Null Sector, and he used his body, if he's an Omnic, or even if he's human, his armor, as a basis for the Behemoth, as I said earlier. And then he escaped, and he's back, ready to kick ass. I don't know, they'll find a way to make this work, because I think that bringing in Soundquake on the roster, apart from maybe Mama Hung, is one of the best choices they can make. It is going to please a lot of the OG fans, and I really think it might be happening. The one small detail that actually pulled me over the line, that had me convinced, that made me say, oh, is that the icon for that hero was between Sigma and Winston, which is exactly the spot where Soundquake would be, because it's alphabetical. So I'm calling it. The Season 14 hero is going to be an altered version of the Soundquake that we've seen in the concept art. He also removed his helmet, he has suffered a lot, and him and Reinhardt are going to be besties. Now, that being said, I have no idea on what his kid could be. Well, I do have some ideas, but I don't think he's going to be using his horn. He took off his helmet, he's done. That's the past. So no more charging, keep that for Monga and Reinhardt. But maybe if he's an Omnic, he'll be a transforming tank unit, like Bastion. Or hear me out. We're finally going to get our first hero that uses a flamethrower. But nah, seriously, if your name is Soundquake, you know what to do. We need to prepare our eardrums, because it's going to get loud with sound missiles, a bass rumble that is going to immobilize you, and a huge sonic beam that is going to pulverize your team. I so hope I'm right, and I hope we get a look at him soon, or at least some hints. For now, however, that was it. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. It always helps me out. I also want to thank my patrons. I could not make these videos without you guys. You have my eternal gratitude. If you have a few minutes left, maybe check out this video. Click it. But above all, take care of yourself, take care of each other. Bye-bye.